Welcome to the Deep Dive. We're here to cut through the noise and get you the essential insights on the books and topics everyone's talking about. And today, we're plunging into Onyx Storm, the third book in Rebecca Yarros' Empyrean saga. It's been highly anticipated, to say the least. So our mission for you, the listener, is really to distill what readers and critics are saying. You know, whether you're a massive Empyrean fan already, maybe counting down the minutes for this, or just curious about what's got the romantasy world buzzing. We want to give you the full picture, the good, the bad, all of it.
Yeah, it's actually kind of amazing how fast this whole series took off. I mean, from Fourth Wing to #1 bestseller and even, serious TV interest. And looking at the reviews, our deep dive shows it's a really complex experience this time around. It definitely rewards the devoted fans, but there are some hurdles too. We'll look at what happened, sure, but also why some things land so well and, well, others don't quite.
Okay, good plan. Let's start maybe with the author herself, Rebecca Yarros. Because beyond just the bestseller list, what's her story? I get the sense there's more there than just, fantasy powerhouse.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Her background's pretty unique, actually. We found out she used to be a cake decorator, and she went to college on a vocal scholarship. Plus, she's married to a military helicopter pilot, which kind of explains why you see those strong themes of loyalty and service popping up in her work.
Yeah.
Makes sense, right?
Yeah, totally.
And she's a mom of 6, co-founded a foster care nonprofit called 1 October. So she's balancing writing, guitar, family life out in Colorado. You definitely get a feeling that this real-world emotional depth informs her stories.
Wow, that is quite a resume. It really makes you think, doesn't it? How personal experience can just weave itself into the worlds authors create. Okay, so with that backdrop, let's dive into Onyx Storm itself. Book 3 picks up after Iron Flame. For anyone maybe new to the series or just needing a quick recap, what's the core idea here? What's this installment about?
Right. So Onyx Storm follows Violet Sorrengail after she leaves Basilieth War College. She's on this really high-stakes mission. Basically, her goals are huge. Find allies, figure out these dangerous wards, and protect Xaden, her lover, who's now dealing with Venin corruption, which is terrifying stuff. So the story is just packed with, sudden political twists, exploring new islands, big reveals about the gods, the pantheon, and a lot of deep emotional reckonings for Violet and everyone.
That sounds like a lot. There's a huge amount packed in there. Looking at all that, what feels like the absolute core challenge for Violet in this one?
That's a good question. For me, it feels like the core challenge is it's multifaceted. It's not just the outside stuff, finding allies, the new places.
Yeah.
It's also that internal battle she's fighting because of Xaden's corruption, how that affects their relationship, the wider war. It feels like she's constantly fighting on, 2 fronts, the big picture and the very, very personal.
Okay, wow, that's a heavy load for one character. So keeping that in mind, let's talk about where Onyx Storm really delivered for people. What are the big strengths everyone's pointing to?
Well, one of the biggest things, you see it everywhere in the reviews, is the romantic tension and also the dragon bonding. The Violet and Xaden dynamic, people are calling it hotter than dragon fire. Lots of praise for their chemistry, that intensity.
Right, the sizzle.
Exactly.
Right.
And beyond just them, the actual dragon lore gets deeper, especially Violet's connection with Tairn and Darna. Those moments with the dragons, they're really emotionally resonant, just rich fantasy stuff.
Sounds like the romance is definitely still a major hook. But you mentioned the dragon bond. How does that make it different from, say, a typical fantasy romance? What does it add?
Yeah, I think it elevates it. It's more than just, a power couple. That bond, it adds this whole other layer. Shared destiny, this intense loyalty, even a kind of vulnerability you don't always get. It makes their connection feel, bigger, more epic, unique to this world.
Okay. Makes sense. What else stood out as a strength?
Another big one was the ensemble cast and the emotional beats. People really love the friendships, the squad dynamic, characters like Redoc and Sawyer, their personal stories, dealing injury with grief. It adds so much texture. Our sources noted that these clutch moments, like secrets coming out, people making sacrifices, they really land with emotional weight.
Yeah.
The climactic scenes felt well-paced in that sense. It shows Yarros can really craft compelling relationships, even with all the high stakes.
So it's not just about Violet and Xaden, then. The side characters really pull their weight.
Definitely. Yeah.
And the world itself. Did it grow in a satisfying way?
Yes. The world-building expansion was another major plus for a lot of readers.
Yeah.
The story really opens up the map of Navarre. You get into new island cultures, different kinds of magic and religions, tricky political stuff, and that really clicks with readers who love that epic fantasy feel, right? They want the universe to keep getting bigger, more detailed. It delivers on that promise of a huge living world.
Okay, but here's where it gets really interesting, right? Because no book pleases everyone. What were the main weaknesses people pointed out with Onyx Storm? Where did it stumble for some readers?
Right. There were definitely criticisms. The most common ones seemed to be about pacing and plot bloat. A lot of critics felt the pacing dragged in places, long sections of just explanation or not much happening, and then suddenly, boom, rushed action.
Yeah.
Some reviews even use words like filler or treading water, particularly with these info dump sections that kind of stalled things. It raises that classic author challenge, doesn't it? How do you expand the world without killing the momentum?
Yeah, treading water is not what you want in an epic fantasy. Sounds frustrating. What else caused problems?
Well, a link to that maybe, was the feeling of an overloaded cast and some confusion. There were quite a few new characters introduced, and for some readers, their voices started to blur, or they just didn't feel like they had enough impact. And similarly, all the new royal places, the Pantheon stuff. Some felt it was kind of shoehorned in. It led to readers feeling a bit lost, like the expansion wasn't always focused.
So maybe just too much new stuff hitting all at once, spreading things a bit thin.
Could be, yeah.
Mm.
That was the feeling for some.
And what about the romance? You said it was intense, a strength, but did it always land perfectly?
That's another interesting point, because while it's clearly passionate, and lots of people loved it, some readers found parts of the romantic dialogue a bit clunky, or maybe overwrought.
Oh, like specific lines?
Yeah, there was one line mentioned often. You want me the same way I want you, with nothing but skin between us. For some, that was peak romantic intensity. For others, it apparently caused a bit of an eye roll.
Huh. Okay, I can see how that might divide people. It really shows how much language choice matters, doesn't it? A line can either soar or sink a moment.
Exactly. It's a great example of how even really strong emotional stuff can be polarizing based on just how it's said.
Okay, one last thing on weaknesses. What about new readers? Could someone just pick up Onyx Storm?
Probably not easily. The reviews strongly suggest significant accessibility concerns. Onyx Storm really leans on you knowing the first two books. New readers would likely feel pretty overwhelmed by all the backstory, the lore. Probably wouldn't get the full impact. It's that classic double-edged sword of these big, ongoing series, isn't it?
Definitely. Great for the fans, tough for newcomers. Okay, so let's pull this all together. Looking at the strengths and weaknesses, what's the overall verdict on Onyx Storm from our deep dive? What's the main takeaway here?
Well, the analysis really cases it as that dual-edged sword we mentioned. On one side, it's triumphantly romantic, it's immersive, especially with the dragons and the core relationships. But on the other side, yeah, it struggles a bit with pacing, feeling crowded at times. It's definitely described as dramatic, emotional, but seems to primarily reward the devoted fans. If you love the dragons, the deep bonds, the epic quests, you'll likely find plenty to hold on to.
So it sounds like it really knows its audience. It's for a specific kind of reader then.
Precisely, yeah. The ratings generally hover around, say, 3.5 to 4 out of 5 stars. So best for people already deep into the Empyrean series, big romantasy fans, anyone who really craves that passionate high fantasy epic feel. But casual readers,
Yeah.
or someone totally new, they might find the huge cast and the slower build a bit much to get through. It kind of shows how these super immersive series sometimes trade broader appeal for a deeper experience for the existing fans,
That makes a lot of sense. Onyx Storm definitely sounds like it amps up Yarros' signature mix, that raw emotion, the intense romance, the dragon action. But yeah, with those big saga expanding ambitions, you get the trade-offs, the length, maybe some clutter, and that risk that things get spread too thin, dimming the original spark a little.
Right. The final take from all the insights seems pretty clear. If you're already hooked on Violet and Navarre, you're probably going to stick with it. Follow every twist. Just maybe be prepared, because it is a massive storm of a book, and maybe not everyone will feel the calm at the end was entirely worth weathering the whole thing.
A massive storm indeed. Okay, so as you think about all this, here's something to ponder. In this age of huge, ever-expanding fictional universes, how much more is actually enough? When does adding more become too much for a story to keep its core magic? Definitely something to think about as you decide whether Onyx Storm is your next read.